Okay, Ramblers, let's get rambling.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Dr. Nick.
Some Dumb Guy here, and welcome to episode 13 of SumDumWatch for the week of December 23rd through December 29th. This is my weekly series where I chronicle what I have watched from my physical media library, as well as any applicable theatrical viewings I happen to attend for the week. So we're going to start out because guess what? This is Christmas week, or it was at the time of recording, not at the time of watching. We dove into some Christmassy type material this week. Now this one is going to look a little bit funky. Long-term viewers of my channel know that I'm partial to scaling down the space my physical media takes up. And one of the forms that takes is buying slim cases, pairing up movies that I think go together well, putting them into those slim cases, making new artworks, labels, and so forth and so on, and taking what is two movies in individual cases, putting them into one case that is half as thick as a standard case, basically scaling things down by, 75%. In the early days of me doing this, my library was exclusively DVD. The cases that I was buying were slim DVD cases, and the methodology that I was using to make new inserts from artwork for those cases was primitive, to say the least. This is going to give you an example of that, and it's not pretty, but it did the job. It did what I needed it to do for the time. My methods have changed and evolved a bit, fortunately, but this is like one of the last examples I have, because in this particular pairing, these two movies are still only available, as far as I'm aware, released on DVD. So these ones have never seen an upgrade, so they're still in the original case, which I think I've maybe got a handful, maybe like 6 or 7 cases still left like this. But this is my 2-pack of K-Pax and The Ref. I watched The Ref. It is one of my favorite Christmas movies from the 90s, starring Dennis Leary, Judy Davis, and Kevin Spacey. As you can see, this is just some bare bone stuff. I use colorful paper. I put something together on Microsoft Word, printed it out just to give myself, there's obviously no artwork, no pictures, no anything. It's just the basic bare bone stuff. Title, actor, you've got a synopsis and technical specs on the back. Again, nothing groundbreaking, but it contained the movies in a space-saving, efficient manner, and was fine for my standards at the time. So anybody that's watching any of my recent videos will see what I do nowadays. Next up, the best, the greatest, the all-time classics Christmas movie of all time. Not specifically coming from my die-hard 5-movie, 3-movie, there's only actually a Die Hard trilogy, but I got this used off of eBay really cheap because it had all 3 in real slim packaging. It just happened to come with these 2 fan fiction movies. I watched Die Hard, which this particular set, in this case, contains my 4K copy of Die Hard, and unfortunately this case is seen better days. It be broken, so I'm gonna have to get a replacement for that. And since it only needs to hold 3 discs for 3 movies, wow, this thing is just completely falling apart on me. I think it might have been opened for the second to last time. But anyway, love Die Hard. Did a nice solid rewatching of that, and it might have been the first time I actually watched my 4K copy since I bought it, and it's a good transfer. Love the movie. I've been watching it pretty much since it was new, because I saw part 2 in the theater when it came out, which I'd already seen the first, and I think it was like a year, maybe 2 years after the first film. Next up, one of my other favorite Christmas movies, and this will be coming from my own homemade collection trilogy, which is something I will be doing with Die Hard at some point in the near future. But we went through and watched National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation on 4K. Like I said, this is basically what I do now. This is my methodology for my slim packaging. I took the 3 National Lampoon's trilogy movies, because of course there's only 3 of these as well. Got a 3-disc Blu-ray case, and in this case I've got 4Ks of Vacation and Christmas Vacation. European Vacation has yet to see a 4K release. Put them together, 3 movies, 1 standard Blu-ray case size. Beautiful. Love that movie. Good stuff. I'm starting to think if I saw that one in the theater now. I want to say that I did. I think so. Yay. Next up, that was it for Christmas. Moving on. This was, I believe, to be a rewatch, and it's one of my recent acquisitions in 4K, which was an upgrade from my Blu-ray. From 1960, we have the 4K release of Spartacus starring Kirk Douglas, and this is a very good movie, very bold for its time. Got a really great interview with, well, kind of an interview. It's more or less just Kirk Douglas talking to the camera. I think it was shortly before he passed, because unfortunately he's not in the best shape. But he speaks incredibly fondly of this film, the production of this film, what it meant to him in his career. This movie is in the neighborhood of a 3-hour runtime, which is great. But interestingly enough, having watched this now after watching the Spartacus Stars TV show that ran for 4 seasons. A couple of times I've seen that show, actually. This now, by comparison, although good in its own right, feels very choppy. Because what can you do in 3 hours as compared to a 4-season TV series that is able to explore the Spartacus legend in considerably more detail than a 3-hour film ever could. But still really enjoy this one. Gene Simmons is also great. We've got Laurence Olivier. We have Tony Curtis in a smallish role. But overall, just a really great film. Not the most beautiful transfer, or maybe it's not even the 4K that is the issue, as maybe it is the makeup used on the actors at the time for the filming, in conjunction with the clarity of the 4K, gives things kind of an artificial kind of look. And I don't know, maybe it's the transfer, maybe it's the makeup, maybe it's a combination of the two. I'm not sure, but it's something. It looked a little funky here and there to me. Next up, I did a rewatch. I'm not exactly sure why, what prompted this for the time, but it may have been the first time I've rewatched this since upgrading to 4K, but it looks pretty darn good, with the exception of a few dated special effects that don't always benefit from an upgraded 4K transfer. But this is my 4K of Titanic. The romantics of the world can love this movie for its love story. The average person can love this as a really great disaster film. And the few hybrid people in the world out there can appreciate both. I'm one of those people that say, Rose, you killed Jack. It's your fault. If you stayed on that lifeboat, he wouldn't have had to protect you. He wouldn't have had to sacrifice his life to save yours. And he would have made it out okay, because Jack was a damn resourceful guy, and you took that away from him. Your fault. You killed Jack. Next, continuing my unofficial weekly series, delving into my Frank Capra at Columbia collection. This will be the second 4K in the box set. It'll be my 5th foray into silent films. In this case, this is the 1929 film, The Younger Generation, which is basically, I'm going to call a Jewish soap opera. It is a good story, a good film in its own right. This will mark the first time I can say, for so far in this box set, being the fifth film, that I haven't liked this one more than those that preceded it. And what I mean by that is, for each film that I've watched each week, I have liked each one in progression more. And I knew that was going to have to peak and come down eventually. This is where it happened. I have no complaints about this film at all. It is good. I have watched a technical progression in some way, shape, or form through each film in this box set that I've watched, and this one is no exception. In this case, this film is an interesting hybrid of silent and talkie. As the film progressed, I tried to identify some kind of pattern of what was causing the transition, because the majority of the film was silent, but every now and then it would kick in a scene that might just be a couple minutes long where you would get actual dialogue from the characters and hear it. There'd be occasional music that would be playing that would more or less match up to what was happening on screen. So then that isn't incredibly rare, and that was becoming increasingly common as the silent era progressed. But this one is the first I've seen that integrates both silent and talkie in one film. So that was fascinating. Ooh, my Blu-ray player just closed. Sound quality, of course, was not great, whether that's limits to the microphone technology of the time and the way that they had to record actual sound as they were filming, probably the case. So interestingly enough, for a silent film, I had to turn my subtitles on just to make sure I was understanding all the dialogue properly. But it's a touching story. It's a heartfelt family story, and a bit of a love story in there as well. It's a tragic tale, but it is, like I said, it's a soap opera involving a Jewish family. And as the title suggests, for the younger generation, it's a separation between old school values and new, and as a sign of the times, what happens. And it's a sad tale. Well, next and kind of last is a new watch for me and a recent acquisition from one of my unboxings, furthering my disdain for biopics and why it is, knowing how I feel about them, that I keep delving into them nonetheless. I'm glad that I picked it up cheap because of it, but I haven't finished this one yet. I'm a little over an hour into it, and it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes, so I'm hoping my opinion will change. But as of where I'm at now, this is my 4K of First Man. I'm disappointed. I don't like the way that it's filmed. That has nothing to do with being a biopic. But the biopic aspect of it is... I have two main problems with biopics. One, the dramatic reinterpretation of events, historical events that are supposed to be factual, for dramatization purposes, for entertainment purposes. To make a movie more palatable to audiences, you lose some historical fact and reality. I don't like that. Second, a frequent occurrence in biopics is a choppy narrative. Inconsistent and incoherent jumps in time, the passage of time, which isn't properly represented to a comprehensive fashion to the audience. This one's guilty of it. Sometimes you'll get a little caption on screen that'll say, this is the place, this is the time, date, year, whatever. Other times there are time jumps that are there, they're visual, they're obvious, but you don't understand how much because it's not giving you any frame of reference. Without going into any detail in the story so much, within a family unit, just internally, you see representations of a passage of time, but you don't know how much. But within that, in the overall scope of things, you're like, okay, well, the movie is telling me it starts in 1961. There's a time where it jumps to 1962 and then a jump to 1965. But within those are individual smaller jumps that you need to rely on the visual cues. And it's so choppy and not fluid in the way it happens that it takes me out of the narrative. And that was already happening 28 minutes into the film, when I was already to the point where I got bored and I put it on pause and I went and did some organizing of my library a little bit, and then I came back and continued it on, and I've so far gotten an hour and 5 minutes into the movie, and I've now paused it again because I'm at this point where I'm not engaged with this film at all, and it's sad. And I think so far Ryan Gosling's performance in this is largely very wooden and disappointing. Star Trek Enterprise. I'm still doing my thing, my nocturnal bedtime viewings as I fall asleep. That's still going on at a snail's pace. Last night I put this in for continue on the episode that I'm on, which is Stratagem from the 3rd season. I've been working on this episode for probably 3 or 4 days. I put this thing in. I picked it up exactly where I left off, remembering from the night before. I pressed play. I watched about 30 seconds. I blinked. I opened my eyes, and the main menu was playing. So guess what? I started it right back up again where I left off, and the next thing I knew, the TV was off from the sleep timer. This is why it takes me forever to get through it. It's pathetic, but that's just the way of it. Okay, so in closing, theatrical viewing for the week. I went on Christmas Day on the morning to watch the new release of Nosferatu, the new Robert Eggers film. Thinking about doing my first review on this film. Maybe. I've never done a review before. I don't feel qualified. But I'm going to give it a shot. Maybe. And we'll see. I've got some mixed feelings about this film. I haven't watched any other reviews. I know it's being recommended. I know it's being fairly well received. With good reason. But I still have mixed feelings. So we'll see. We'll see. If that plays out, I've got another film I'm kind of interested in reviewing as well. But we'll see. Anyway. That's that. Got any thoughts, opinions, feelings on any of my viewings for this week? What have you watched yourselves this week? The word block down below, called the comment section, awaits your typings. Please make use of it. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you again next week's episode. Take care. Bye-bye.